Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's up, Los Angeles? Welcome in to a special live Rams Skinny. I'm your co-host, Ryan Dyer, joined as always by my main man, Skinny T. And day 2 of the free agency frenzy, at least within business hours, is wrapped up. Obviously, moves can still happen, and we saw some late ones last night, not by the Rams, but around the league. One USC legend, Sam Darnold, signed late last night with the Minnesota Vikings. Doesn't pertain to the Rams, but hey, some LA folklore there. But talking all things Rams, we put up a show yesterday after day 1, the signings of Jonah Jackson, Colby Parkinson. And so today we'll talk Darious Williams, talk about the tender for Alaric Jackson. Did happen, second round tender they give him. Plus, we're obviously going to spend a lot of time talking about this edge position as that market is drying up and the options are getting slim. But thank you all. Come hang out. We haven't done it live in a while, so excited to see everyone come in here. Bring your comments, questions. Would love to chat and interact with you all, and hopefully we can start making this maybe a weekly thing. But first and foremost, Skinny T, hair's looking great today. You got the flannel on. It was a cool, crisp SoCal day today. How we doing?
Oh man, I had a lot of stock in Brian Burns, and that burned up real quick. And now Danielle Hunter, he's out of it too. But as I was told, keep an open mind. I did a little digging around, found some sleepers that I've fully bought into in the last 45 minutes or so.
Love it. From Van Ginkel to Burns. Well, I guess Burns would be first, then the Van Ginkel, then the Danielle Hunter. You know, if you're a day trader for potential Rams edge players, you're in the red for sure. I'm not saying you, just everyone out there, because they haven't got anyone.
Yeah, I thought Van Ginkel was going to be the true sleeper, super athletic, quintessential Rams kind of guy, and he got scooped up by Brian Flores, the guy who drafted him, real soon. So bummer there, but yeah. We live to fight another day, and yet again we learn that Les Snead doesn't do what Ryan Anderson wants.
Well, I blame Sports Illustrated, so that's who I'll blame for that. Since you were the first to get the Van, not the first of like fans, but the first to put the Van Ginkel orb out into the universe, and then Sports Illustrated stole our story. So
that happens occasionally. It burns us up, because we're just a couple of little guys here, like a small little company, just a few people trying to do our thing, and then the big behemoth. Much respect for the magazine, but they come and snag our stories.
Yeah, take all our traffic. But hey, it's great. We're loving it. It's been fun. It's been a fun free agency. You've been killing it. If anyone wants full updates, which I'm sure many people, especially if you're on Twitter, you get pretty regular and pretty fast and furiously. But Skinny T put together a great free agency tracker over at LAFBnetwork.com that gives you every move, breakdowns of all the positions. He's updating the cap there. So everything you need in one place, plus all of our other coverage of the Rams on LAFB Network, and obviously right here on the Rams Skinny, whether you're watching on Twitter, whether you're on LAFBnetwork.com or our YouTube page. We have our Rams LAFB YouTube page. Would love if you'd hit that subscribe button. That's Rams only. Or our LAFB Network YouTube page. We have kind of everything over there as well. But let's get into, I guess, the news this morning that broke bright and early here on the West Coast. Always love that. Darious Williams coming back home to LA. We'll call it home. He had some of his best years here in LA. Signs a 3-year, 22 million or 22.5 million. I don't have it in front of me now. 22.5 million deal to be another corner for the Rams. Your thoughts, Skinny, on the signing and bringing Williams back? Obviously, the fans were pining for it for a while. As soon as free agency started, there was a lot of murmurs about everyone wanting Darious Williams to come back, and it gets done. But your thoughts on it?
Yeah, they needed to add a corner. He is in fact a corner, and he played well when he was here. Super Bowl run, played a lot of games. That year, I think 97% of snaps that season or something, I believe, was his number. So, opposite Jalen Ramsey that year, and did a fantastic job. And hopefully he returns to that form. Didn't find his footing there in Jacksonville. But as I said before, Les Snead doesn't do what Ryan Anderson wants. Another under 6 foot cornerback in the defensive backfield there. I've wanted somebody, 6'1", 6'2", that you can really rely on going up against really tall against tall wide receivers out there. So, I think, you needed to add experience. You needed just a warm body situation. You can't go wrong adding cornerbacks. And this points to adding somebody of size in the draft. I don't know if that's first round or later on, but they still have a good amount of money, and they can go out and target one of those more experienced safety like Justin Simmons, like you mentioned. But there's the cornerback market has gone nowhere so far. Just a couple guys off the board, so still plenty of options there.
The secondary market in general. I mean,
yeah,
the safeties have got Poyer just signed with the Dolphins 30 minutes ago before it went live or whatever, and that's been one of the only sign. I think Jeremy Chin also signed earlier today, but that's about it. I mean, there's a lot of safeties out there. Obviously, two of those being Rams with John Johnson and Jordan Fuller. But yeah, in terms of Darious Williams, it'll be interesting to see how he fits back with this roster now. Obviously, we know what he did when he was here before. Wasn't necessarily standout great in Jacksonville. It wasn't bad either. I mean, last year, he had 44 solo tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 4 picks still, and 19 passes defended. So not in terms of production wise or playmaker wise, decent stat wise. There's sometimes he got burned and whatnot, but Jacksonville was just a weird team last year, just up and down, and defensive coordinator got moved on. So, I mean, it was just a weird situation overall. But what'll be interesting is just, seeing, because you alluded to it, like he was playing alongside, Jalen Ramsey, and their best year they had Troy Hill also. And that was kind of the unit now. And now it's like, who's going to be the one? Akhello Witherspoon's also a free agent. Do the Rams bring him back? We know about the youth and the inexperience already. We talked about it a ton. Everyone knows about it with the players they have in this secondary room. But we know, so Darius will be the stalwart, the old head, if you will, in the secondary. But what I like about it the most is, at least it doesn't pigeonhole them into being forced, or not necessarily forced, but like really strongly needing to take a corner early in the draft. Still can do that. I still, if they end up getting an edge at some point, which we'll talk about here later on the show, there's no reason why they can't take a Kool-Aid McKinstry or one of these top guys at 19. But at least now, because they did sign a corner, one they're familiar with, one that played for Aubrey Pleasant, who was here before, at least they're not like forced to be like, oh man, we really need some corner help here in the draft. But they need more still regardless, but at least they're not forced. So I think that's my favorite. There's familiarity there. We know he has some good talent. We know he's, a good team guy. They get him for, I'm bad at math, but what is that? 7.25 average per year or so million, which, isn't necessarily pennies, but it's not, breaking the bank. It's not the 20 million they were paying Jalen Ramsey 2 years ago. So if they can get the same production, even as last year, 4 picks, 19 passes defend, 40 solo tackles, like that's pretty good production for $7 million a year. So overall, I like the signing. I don't love it. I definitely don't hate it. So overall, it's a good signing.
Yeah, and I think it points towards Cobie Durant moving in as a nickel corner probably more frequently. He was kind of moving inside and out in that star role that Jalen Ramsey made very famous for the Rams. So I think that's what that also signals is, whoever's on the outside, Derion Kendrick maybe,
fan favorite,
Darious Williams, and then you got Cobie there at nickel, and then Quentin Lake at dime. So looking better. I feel good about that.
Yeah. I mean, do you think, is it worth it? I know we talked about this maybe just last week, but obviously things happen quick. Like if they can get Akhello Witherspoon back for a similar price they got him last year, do you think that's a good move? Because then they're kind of like, I'm not saying it's a all pro unit, but they're kind of set then. When you think about, Akhello Witherspoon is like a true, your outside guy with Darious Williams. Yeah, you're 2 outside guys, and they have a lot of versatility there. Then at nickel, and with the emergence of Quentin Lake being able to play kind of star and money, they'd have some good versatility there. Do you think that should be a priority? Is like, hey, just bring Akhello Witherspoon back? Or do you think they go after another big name guy? You mentioned the corner market not moving a lot, or are they kind of set for free agency now and just turn towards the draft?
Well, I like Akhello Witherspoon. I don't love Akhello Witherspoon. I think he's second or third best cornerback on any other team, and he was the best cornerback last year. He was a bit hurt. I got to give him that credit there, that he, when he kind of started to get beat a little bit towards the end of the year, that could have been injury related as well. He was good. He was serviceable. He did his job very well. I was looking for more splash moves at this, though. I was looking for something that was really going to move the needle. I was looking for the Rams defense to go from around the 20th ranked defense, depending on which metric you want to use, vaulting them back up into that top 10 area. Yeah. And Akhello Witherspoon doesn't do that for me. I think they've got the money, so I think they should continue to entertain that idea. Just because, I've said it before, this defense didn't lose any games for the Rams, but they didn't win any games for the Rams. And there's just going to be days where, maybe Stafford is off, Kyren Williams is off, Puka's off, and that's when the defense has got to be able to come in there and go get a turnover, make a big sack, get a big third down stop, something like that, some game-changing move. And we just didn't see that in 2023. And so far with these moves, that isn't what I'm looking at. Darious Williams is a step in the right direction. But I'm still open to more steps being taken. There's talk of trading up in the draft to go get a Terrion Arnold or an edge rusher. That would be very un-Rams of them.
Yeah,
especially in the first round. But maybe that's what they're thinking, that they're going to take a swing at one of those guys. It's still a bet, but it's a good bet. If you go top 10.
Yeah, for sure. And they have the draft capital to do it. Obviously, 11 picks in this draft, having a first rounder. They're kind of on that fringe at 19, where, you still a lot of talent there. And especially if a lot of quarterbacks go like is expected this year, some top tier talent, which they would need, is going to fall to that. But, if you move up to, say, a 12, 13, 14, obviously that just expands your talent level that you can potentially get in terms of, because I feel like when you look at the draft, take out the quarterbacks, but like 1 through 15 are seen as guys that are like elite game changers with potential to be kind of, roster builders around. 15 to 30 are like plug and play guys you hope can start right away. And then obviously after that, it's kind of like, we're just hoping guys that can re-sign to a second contract, which doesn't always happen. Obviously you find gems like they did last year, knocked out of the park. So we'll see. Let's just,
questions.
Yeah, we're live. We can just talk. I know everyone wants to talk edge. So, Julio, I hope we get an edge player, but I'm skeptical, honestly. You're not alone. Chris, would you prefer to draft an edge in the first or still sign a free agent with what's left? I have my opinion on this. I will let you comment on this first, Skinny.
This
will lead into you said you fell in love with some sleepers in the last 45 minutes. So this can lead into that. So there you go.
Oh, edge. We're talking edge. I thought we were talking cornerback just now.
Yeah, we moved on past corner. Darious Williams, welcome back to LA. Moving on. Okay.
At this point, drafting first round edge or getting edge rusher in free agency. Is that the question? First round edge or just drafting it? I'm going to say
edge in the
I'm going to say I prefer drafting an edge rusher in the first. Either trading up and getting one of the top 2 guys. I'm forgetting the guy's name from Alabama, but I really like him. Not Jared Verse. I don't like Jared Verse as much. I don't think he's a very Rams edge rusher. But I also love Leate Latu. We've talked a lot about Latu. He's smart. He's not the most explosive athlete. He's a good athlete. He's no slouch for sure. And he's got great production, and he uses his hands and his feet at an elite level beyond just about anybody in the draft, probably, I would say. And that's a thing that you can just skip in coaching. If the guy has elite hands already, that cuts out a huge portion of what you have to do in coaching. So, That's how I lean. What do you say?
I mean, I think both. I'm gonna go, full have my cake and eat it too here. Like I think the Rams need to get an edge in free agency, whether it's a star, which there's not a lot of stars left, certainly in just free agency, but there's some to be had in trades, which we've talked about and we'll talk about more right now in terms of, I think Josh Allen's the pipe dream, but they're gonna have to give up too much for that. And I don't know if they'll have the cap to make that one work anymore because he's gonna get 20 million plus. But obviously Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack are both, we'll just call them available. They're available. The Chargers are still 25 million over and they have 12 hours to get under the cap. So they're either cutting one or two of those guys or trading for peanuts. But I'll mention but regardless of that, and this is where I can ask you about sleepers, but the Rams need to sign an edge guy regardless. Like they need, I mean, right now you're talking about, you have Byron Young, who I think has a ton of promise, great rookie year, really excited about him. And after Nick Hampton right now is starting, because remember, Michael Hoyt is a free agent who they haven't brought back. So you got Nick Hampton and O'Shawn Mathis and Zach Van Volkenberg as like your other edge options right now. So you got to sign someone else with some veteran prowess. And then if you draft someone, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Oh, Chris, let me know who it was. Dallas Turner is who I was thinking of. So I appreciate that, Chris.
There you go. And then if you draft someone, which I think they should do, that's still my pick, especially with signing Darious Williams. My first round pick is the edge position. But even still, like and I talked about it last night, so I'll just repeat myself if anyone didn't hear it. I don't feel great about going into the season with Byron Young and a rookie as my two edge starters. And, everyone will say, and rightfully so, well, look at last year. Like last year was Byron Young, a rookie, and Michael Hoyt, and their defense did great. The difference is last year there were no expectations, and the Rams exceeded those expectations. They played great. Defense played above expectations. Those two guys and Byron Young developed very quickly. But now the expectation is to get back to the big dance. Like this is now, we're in a Super Bowl window now. And so now things are going to be a little more critical. And the defense as it stands right now is worse right now than it was heading into last season. Because you got no starting safeties right now. Jordan Fuller and John Johnson gone. And you're missing Michael Hoyt was your starting edge. You're missing him. You're missing a linebacker. Christian Joesph is not back with the team currently. And so they're worse now. And so you have to address some of these before going in the draft when you're in panic mode and you're like, all right, you never want to be drafting for starters. That is not what you want to do. The Rams have been knocking these out of the park these last couple drafts, specifically last year, because last year expectations were low. It was a remodel year. They could get creative with it. B, the coaching was great and developed those players, but they weren't forced to draft those guys as starters. Now, a lot of those guys became starters, obviously, with Byron Young, Kobie Turner, Puka Nacua down the line. But when you're trying to be a Super Bowl team and you're having to draft your starter, that's not a spot you want to be in. Now, those guys you want to become starters for sure. So I don't want to get misheard there. That you build your team through the draft, but you don't want to expect those guys to be your starters in training camp. So long-winded answer, but the Rams need to sign an edge guy, whether it's one of the top tier guys left, which isn't many, or toss it over to you, maybe one of these sleeper guys that you've fallen in love with in the last hour.
Yeah, and I'll just say this on draft picks. Development is not linear. Just because Kobie Turner had a fantastic rookie season doesn't mean he's going to have a better year or even as good of a year. I don't like to say that because I love the guy and I love what he did. Same thing for Byron Young. So that's not that's not to be expected.
And just to add, while you're like, I love the Gift Smith hire. I think it was a great replacement, but losing Eric Henderson is a huge loss on the defensive line coaching staff. And so I don't want to be misheard here. Like, we're not here doom and gloom. Rams have done good so far. I still have a ton of promise, but just pointing out, like, it's not all butterflies, unicorns, and rainbows. Like, that is a big loss, losing Coach Henne. And Gift Smith, I think, is great. But you look at the Chargers defensive line last year with a lot of star talent, left a lot to be desired, unfortunately.
That is a scary point. So let's move on to the more optimistic. Let's take a look at the guys that are still left over at edge rusher in free agency. You got Chase Young, Jadeveon Clowney, Carl Lawson. So I mean, those are kind of guys at the top. I'm not sure if I would put Lawson in that category. I'm reading the list stuff here. Yeah, but Calais Campbell, but you're getting into guys that aren't necessarily Rams types, and none of those guys are really the Rams types. They're more hand in the dirt kind of 4-3 front kind of guys, rather than if you just picture Leonard Floyd, he's standing up. It's
Mhm.
he's dropping into coverage. It's a much more dynamic position rather than just a pure pass rusher, just a guy coming off the edge. So didn't like what I saw from Chase Young. Janavian Clowney has never been super impressive. He's had good production, but I think the top end is really tapped. Do you have different thoughts on that?
Yeah, just purely free agent wise, like Chase Young intrigues me. Obviously, the trade happened, and it was, there's the film of him with like really low effort with the Niners, and obviously didn't push them over the edge. But as a former like number one overall pick and who had some productive years in Washington, and seeing how his stock is plummeting and he can be had probably for fairly cheap, um, it intrigues me because he's still a young guy. And I think the Rams are cocky enough where they're like, we can get the most out of this guy. Like this is a guy that you know, was a former number one overall pick, and like I just said, had some good production on tape over his early part of his career, and then just kind of fizzled out, and for whatever reason, just didn't mesh with the Niners over there. So, and it's a guy that maybe he says, hey, it didn't go down well with the Niners for whatever reason. Let me go to their rival and prove that I am still an elite player. So I'm not saying I'm in love with that idea, but if the price is right, I mean the age is right, the body type's right, he kind of fits the mold of a guy that was a not necessarily a castaway, but like a high end draft pick that didn't pan out with his former teams. When you look at Dante Fowler, drafted 4th overall, the Rams picked up in free agency or trade, I think actually. When you look at Leonard Floyd, drafted 8th overall by the Bears, had his best year with the Rams. This would fit in line that Chase Young maybe have his best years with the Rams. So of all those names, like he intrigues you the most. If you can get him for, I mean, what do you think his market value is right now? It can't be incredibly high. I mean, Danielle Hunter, I saw someone just comment there. He just signed with the Texans for what, 26 million per year. I
Yeah,
mean,
a
Chase
lot
Young's
of
probably going to get,
guarantees in there too.
yeah, Chase Young. You think what does he even get half of that?
Probably not. I mean, it's hard to say at this point because there's going to be a desperate team out there that a dumb team. Let's say that. So, but we've talked about Bosa and Khalil Mack before. I mean, what's your pitch for those guys? I'm more on the Mack side. Great production, healthy. Um,
Yeah.
He's going to get cut or he's going to get traded as the Chargers try to get under the cap. 26 million, no, $24.5 million now, if my
Oh
counting
yeah.
is correct, but
They cut
couple
some
couple
practice
of
squad guys.
waivers, earlier today, but yeah.
I,
Um,
you you.
what's your, oh, go ahead.
I was just say you're pro Mac over Bosa, right?
Just because, I mean, bottom line, the health has just been bad. So having him in there as your kind of 3 down guy, I
Yeah.
don't love it.
Yeah. I'm torn. So if we're going off this, I mentioned earlier like Rams should be all in. Once Danielle Hunter signed, I tweeted that the Rams should be all in on trading for one of these guys. And I said that because obviously one of them is probably, I'm not saying 100%, but like 99% sure, 99.9% sure one of them will be cut. But I said trade because that ensures you don't have to compete with the open market. Like you
Yeah.
trade a 7th or whatever, a 6th, and then he's on your roster. And then you can renegotiate from there. You don't have to deal with, his price potentially going up either player. So that's why I said trade. But for all intents and purposes, let's just say both are going to be on the open market. Let's just say both get cut for whatever reason. I'm torn because Mac career last year, 17 sacks, healthier, obviously. Dude can still play, but he is 33 years old. We saw the drop off Von Miller that, the Rams dodged a bullet there with Von Miller with that contract. And we saw his massive drop off this year. I'm not saying Mac's going to have that. Van Ginkel, they're just teasing you there.
Love you, Chris.
Um, not saying he's going to have that, but, he'll be 34, I believe, when the season starts. Bosa has really bad injury history, but is still under 30 as it currently stands. If you can make a new because again, they'll be cut. So you're now building a new contract. If you have, certain injury clauses in there, which I'm sure they would have. And with the Rams training staff, there's something about the upside of Bosa and the 4 years or so younger that he is, and the added element of playing your brother twice a year and wanting to beat him brothers love each other, but you're also competitive and you want to beat each other. There's something added there that I like. So I'm so torn. Like max production last year far outweighs, his health far outweighs, but the ceiling of Bosa and the youth, I guess, or the age turns me that way. And you can probably get him maybe even potentially cheaper just because of the injuries, even though all the upside that I just said. So I don't know. I go back and forth, but I truly believe, I think one of those guys is going to be a Ram. I really believe that.
One becomes a Ram, the other becomes a 49er. There's a lot of Bosa talk, which is fun.
Yeah, but the Niners just signed like 2 edge guys, right? So I wonder if they're still...
they have no defensive tackles. So, again, they might end up getting just a sweetheart deal so that he can kind of finish his career out with his brother.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Their mom wants them together, right? And that came out.
Yeah.
Duh.
Instagram comments,
Yeah. What mom doesn't want their sons playing together? So I don't think that's not going to dictate where they end up. I don't think.
I hope not. So yeah, we've waited long enough. My sleeper picks. I'm gonna drop these in here. So Mike Dana, 5th round pick, was playing for the Chiefs. He's a former Wolverine, so he's got that Harbaugh pedigree. But 6.5 sacks last year. The only thing I can really think of that isn't ideal about him is he's 6'2", so he's not kind of that 6'4", 6'5", where the Rams have kind of like to shoot for. But with that kind of production, he's about halfway down the list of these top guys. So I wouldn't mind taking a swing on a guy that used to play next to the second most elite defensive tackle, going to play again, playing alongside the most elite defensive tackle in Aaron Donald. Probably get him for a pretty good deal, probably under 10 million for him. So that's my guy number one. He also had 5 sacks last season, the season before last. So a decent track record there. My second one, 6'4", 267 out of Tennessee, 2nd round pick, Darrell Taylor. I was playing for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I was going to throw him out there.
Oh, cool. Yeah. 5.5 sacks last year. Not the best production, but that defense has been just a wreck. So, and the fact that Mike McDonald hasn't pulled the trigger on re-signing a guy like this, they're probably not competing for him. His defense looks a lot different than Carroll's defense looked in the past. So, those are kind of my 2 sleepers that you can probably get for under 10 million, maybe right around there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all in on Terrell. The only thing with him is he's a restricted free agent, so that obviously makes things a little more interesting. I think he still can be had, but that obviously I don't even know what they, but that that just changes things a little bit. That the Seahawks obviously have a little bit more staying power there, but the fact they haven't done anything could still be an option. I also just thrown out a couple other names. We mentioned Clowney. I know everyone always brings his name up. Like, yeah, sure, why not? Bud Dupree, a guy, on the other side of 30, but some production there. I like Charles Harris, from the Lions. I believe he's still available. This isn't the list I'm looking at isn't fully updated, but anyone in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's still available. And then the other guy I was going to mention, I had it, and then of course now I lost it. I mean, you could go real old and get like a Melvin Ingram, Justin Houston's preserving, if you want to go like a real old school guy. But the other one, if you're going strictly for a guy to come in for a year while you draft someone at 19, I like Kyle Van Noy a lot. Kyle Van Noy, great season last year, joining late with the Ravens. Big pedigree, played for a year in LA with the Chargers, so he knows Gift Smith. And there's some familiarity there. Could get him fairly cheap, good team leader. So he's a guy I think if you just get a 1-year deal, you're going to get some production out of him. He's a solid player, and then that allows you to draft a rookie, but you're not forcing your rookie to be a starter right off the bat.
Yeah, Ingram's the name in that list that really intrigues me. I was kind of thinking they might pick him up partway through the season. I think he sat out all last year. But last time he played, I think he had about six or so sacks. So that's good production. I'm still open door there.
Why didn't the Rams pull the trigger on Brian Burns? Was it the picks or the contract?
I think the contract.
I'll let you answer.
Yeah, it ended up being 105 years, 150 million. So $30 million, second highest paid. You know, what we've learned so far is they're not investing in in the defense. They've spent a pretty good chunk of money
Not at all.
on offense already. So they're gonna, you know, I just, you know, I always thought they were in the Brian Burns market, but you know, it turns out that their priorities were much different than I thought they were. You know, they're obviously, you know, we've talked enough about the offensive line already. You know, I like the players. I see what they're doing there, fun and interesting. But I want more than duct tape, more than gum and Band-Aids for the defense. You know, there needs to be solid players that are proven NFL talent.
Yeah, I mean, they got to add something there. Can't just be Aaron Donald, and that's all.
Yeah.
And Ernest Jones. Can't disrespect Ernest Jones like that. And obviously Darious Williams now coming back, but yeah, and I definitely don't think it was the draft picks for Brian Burns. I mean, what did he went for? What, a third and a fifth? Is what the final deal was.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Third and a fifth. Yeah.
So I mean, they offered 2 firsts just a year and a half ago. So I don't think, but yeah, I think it was the knowing they were going to have to shell out a ton of money. His production was down last year, which is why he went for way less draft picks, obviously. And, you know, everyone's production was down in Carolina, so hard to fault him for that. Sadly, because, you know, our good guy Evero was the DC there, so you thought it would have worked out better, and is the remaining DC there, former Ram coach Evero. But, yeah, I think they just knew it's going to cost a fortune. And, you know, it could have been, I have no sources on this, but could have been some pride too. Like you get shut down for 2 first-round picks for Burns. You get shut down for CM, you know, Christian McCaffrey, and they end up trading him to your division rival. You're probably like, yeah, we're not doing business with you anymore. Like the effort was there. We tried 2 years, the last 2 years, like we're moving on. We're done with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got a question here. What do you think on Bobby Wagner?
I mean, it's interesting because obviously they signed him a year ago to a 5-year deal. And then we had a really bad year with all the injuries. They released him to let him go back to Seattle. But he would be a fit now because guess what? Like we need another backer. I mean, but I also think that the way they run, if Chris Shula is going to run the defense similar to what Raheem Morris did, they don't run a ton of 2 inside backer sets. They have 2 inside backers and they run it every now and then, but it's not like 90% of the plays have 2 backers. They run a lot of nickel, a lot of dime situations where they're, you know, having 3 safeties out there, you know, 5 defensive backs or whatever, different edge packages, different blitz packages. And it's not always having 2 backers. Not saying they don't ever, but that was why they let him go in the first place, because they felt really good about Ernest Jones and they thought they weren't getting enough playing time for him with Wagner there. So if Wagner's willing to come in and be the second fiddle to Jones's first fiddle, first chair, if you will, then absolutely. I mean, we talked about this before the show started. Like, the guy led the NFL in tackles last year, 183 tackles, led the NFL, 11 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. Like the dude had a great year. He's not a great cover backer, but what you get with Bobby Wagner is a true hard-nosed run stuffing linebacker. And so, I mean, if the price is right, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just think they need to spend elsewhere on defense, as we mentioned, edge, and they got to get a safety, in my opinion. So, but they do need a backer. I mean, it's Ernest Jones, and that's like it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a position that they've really invested a lot of money at the last good chunk of time, and you know, they're going to extend Ernest Jones. He's going to end up making a little bit more. You know, he's going to take a big pay bump, and so I think they'll call it good at that. Love Bobby Wagner. I think he did tremendous things in mentoring Ernest Jones.
Yeah.
You can see the advancements. I think Ernest Jones has always been good, but he took a huge step forward from 22 to 23 after spending a good amount of time with Wagner. So, yeah, I appreciate what he's done, but you know, I think they'll have to draft at that position as well, and there's some good guys, good linebackers to draft.
Yeah. Let's go quickly to the offense. Let's talk this other question. Thought on the backup QB situation. And we talked about this 3 episodes ago. So we spent a good 30 minutes on it for anyone that's interested to go back to that. But your thoughts, I mean, they haven't done anything yet. What's your thoughts on what they will do or what they should do or what you would do if you were Lester P. Skinny T?
Again, Les Snead does not care what I think.
He should.
Apparently, he should. We are the most influential Rams podcast. I say that as a joke, just so all of you know.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler is my guy. Probably third rounder.
That's your guy, huh?
Talking him up.
That's your guy, huh?
He's my guy. Yeah. Lots of talent. Only question marks are kind of in his attitude, behavior, that kind of thing, which it seems like he's moved on past. He's matured beyond that point. So I like him, and nothing on Carson Wentz so far, but I like him. I like him there as well, just because not only is he a guy that can go out there and win you a game, as we like to say. He's a guy that I think you could use in short yardage situations to pick up 4th and 1s, 3rd and 1s.
Have some fun with it. Yeah.
He's a big dude. And we saw he played in that 49ers week 18 game, and they used him a couple of times in that situation. And it's such a breath of fresh air, because it's like anytime Stafford has to do that, it's like, no, please don't. So you just
go down, just take the sack.
You just send Big Red in there and let him take care of it.
That's right. Which he's, unfortunately, that's what kind of ruined his career, was doing that. But against the Rams, ironically enough, at the Collie at that grade, and in, I believe, week 13 it was, when he was on an MVP campaign. But yeah, to me, Carson Wentz is the ideal backup. I'm sure him and his agents are waiting out to see if he can get a job out there that lets him compete for a starting role. Broncos obviously are looking for a quarterback. We just saw the Vikings sign Sam Darnold for 1 year for $10 million. He'll compete to be the starter. There's a few other out there that I think he would have the ability to compete. Whereas the Rams, he is the defined backup. And we talked about on that episode, Skinny, that, I think we looked, what is he, 29, 30 ish, 29, 30. And so, Stafford finished out his contract in the next 3 years. Like if Wentz can stay healthy and be in the system, at 33, potentially he takes the reins over and, has a nice 4-year run here in LA, 4 or 5 year run here in LA as the starter. So maybe that's something in the back of mind, but it'd be silly of him and his agent to not at least test the free agent waters and see what's out there for a potential QB starting job, which I think is why he hasn't been signed by the Rams. I don't think it's necessarily the Rams. I think it's more him saying, like, let me, see what I can get, because I know what's happening here, at least for the next 2 to 3 seasons. But he, to me, is the best option. I mean, who else? We talked about a lot, but who else is left in free agency? And then we'll talk a little draft too, as you mentioned, Rattler, and I'll give my 2 cents on that too. But who else is left in free agency that you would, if Wentz, let's just say Wentz gets the Denver job, like who else would you be like, all right, this is a good a backup to bring in for, fairly cheap?
All my guys are gone pretty much from free agency. Gardner Minshew was a pipe dream. I knew it was never going to happen, but he's just so much fun. Yeah. Such an LA kind of a
15 million for a backup per year would have been tough, but he would have been such a fun fit here.
Jacoby Brissett, not enough people. He's gone. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Tyrod Taylor, another guy that I like, backing up. Is he back in Jets? Okay. I saw New York, but
yeah,
I thought he might have been. Anyway, the only guy that has any upside to me off this list left is Tyler Huntley, and okay job when he had to fill in for Lamar Jackson, but he adds wheels to the Rams offense, and we saw Bryce Perkins kind of in that role, but just to change the pace, again, bring him in on 4th and short and go for it. You got to account for him. That's not something the defense had planned for. It gives a little bit of a nugget interest in there. Not the guy that's going to take over for you, but yeah. And yeah, good. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. I mean, you said it. I mean, if Wentz does sign elsewhere, we're in the, Joe Flacco technically is still out there.
Yeah.
But
I'm not opposed to Joe Flacco.
Yeah, he'd be a fine backup. So I mean, I think he's going to get probably bigger offers than what the Rams want to pay a backup. But he's out there. Then you're looking at literally like Easton Stick, Trevor Siemian, Matt Barkley, AJ McCarron. Like that's kind of what you're looking at as a backup, which obviously based on what happened last year, even though it was only one game, like you want to have a guy that can come in and there you go. What about Flacco? So if Carson, I think we're at the point now, Skinny, where if Wentz signs elsewhere, like the Rams should probably draft a QB regardless, just to have some competition, some youth. But if Wentz goes elsewhere, they're I think forced to draft a quarterback because you do not want to go into the season again with another quote unquote like Brett Rippon situation at backup. And I know Sean McVay and Leslie have never put an emphasis on the backup quarterback. They never have. But I think last year
this is the year to do it.
Yeah, this is the year. Like you're in your Super Bowl window. You know, your 3 year so Super Bowl window. This team isn't going to go far without Matthew Stafford. But if he, God forbid, misses 2-3 games, if he misses the season, it's done regardless. But if he misses 2 or 3 games or 4 games, you need a guy that can go in there and win you some games. And outside of Wentz, I don't think there's any free agent left that I feel pretty good about that happening. And so you're going to have to use probably a second or third to get a Rattler, like you mentioned, or get if a Bo Nix falls that far, which I'm not super high on Bo Nix, and I certainly don't want him in the first round, but or a Michael Penix or something like that. So I mean, they might be forced to if they don't get Wentz back in free agency. Your thoughts on that?
I don't like that. That's all I have to say about that.
So are we saying they need to go all in on Wentz right now? Like screw the edge position. They need to make sure Wentz is back. Is that what we're saying now?
I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, I'm not saying screw the edge position, but like, it's a violent game out there, and Stafford has had enough violence brought upon him.
Yes,
and so they're protecting him more with their offensive line choices that they made this offseason so far. But looking at the free agents, I don't like that. I don't like drafting Bo Nix or Penix as high as they'd have to. Bo Nix is getting first round consideration now. Some people are mocking him to the Rams, and it's just like that's
didn't PFF mock him to the Rams just like last week?
Yeah, exactly. So
wasted pick.
They've got to figure it out just so that they can have this guy, and they got to figure it out sooner than later because I mean there's nobody left on the board in free agency, so they're kind of getting themselves between a rock and a hard place. And I think that Carson Wentz will get some of those offers. Carolina is an idea I've had. Denver's looking for quarterbacks. There's places that are having QB competitions out there. So yeah. I mean,
last one to mention, and then we got to get to this comment because it'll tickle your heartstrings since you just wrote an article about it today. Zach Wilson, that's a rumor going around. I have my thoughts on it, but if they missed out on Wentz, do you think the Rams go after it? You got to trade, and Mike LaFleur, we know, is not a fan of Zach Wilson from his time in the New York Jets, which is why I never understood the rumor, because people that rumored it is like, well, yeah, Mike LaFleur was his OC, but they did not like each other. Like Mike LaFleur was pretty clear.
He benched him for Mike White.
Yeah, pretty clear he did not think he was a good quarterback. So I don't know, just because someone played with someone doesn't mean all of a sudden it's a good connection. But is that something they could get past? What is he, 24, 23? Still young? Is that a better scenario to you than being forced to take a QB in the second or third round?
Which the Rams I would rather take a bet in third or fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round than trade any of those assets for Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is not a guy that has proven that he can win in the NFL. Period. Yeah. That's it. And you've made the rest of the point for me, so I don't have to drone on about that. Let's get to the real question.
The real question. Kicker. I hit it. Kicker situation. I'll just leave it to you. You wrote an article today about it.
Yeah.
Rams need a kicker. They needed one last year too.
Yeah. So Brett Maher's a free agent. He missed. So they left 38 points off the board, impossible points from missed field goals and extra points between their two kickers last year. They went into the season 38 points. 38 points. Yeah. 20. The Rams point differential last season was 27 points. So wow. I mean, it doesn't correlate exactly, but they're like they lost a few games by anyway. they went into the season with Tanner Brown last year, ended up this whole bad situation, ended up with Brett Maher. He's a free agent. I don't feel great about them re-signing him, although he does hail from my hometown, Kearney, Nebraska.
That's right.
Love him for that, but I don't love him for this job. So there's exactly one free agent remaining that I would sign. Nick Folk. He's nearly 40, which isn't a bad age, not for a kicker anyway. But he had the what's that?
Bias much? Not a bad age.
Not a bad age. I don't know. But he led the league in field goal percentage made last year, so that's a good sign. Made most of his extra points, so that's the only place you're going. Otherwise, you're drafting a kicker or you're getting one as an undrafted free agent. It's never been a great way to go about it. Go find me a Brandon Aubrey. Go scout the MLS. That's where the Cowboys found him. That's and this is such an annoying conversation to have because the Rams have treated this position like an afterthought since Matt Gay, and
since before that,
Matt
Gay was
you're
right about acquisition. Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, I totally blocked that part out of my mind. And they have to treat it with a certain amount of seriousness because they're leaving points off the board. Points win games. This game is about scoring points. It's about winning games. It doesn't matter if you get yourself to the 30-yard line and then miss a field goal. This is kickers are on the field for like 10 snaps a game. Name me another player that's on the field for 10 snaps a game that has that impact. Such an impact.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, it's not a fan favorite position. They get the most hate, the most jokes about, but when you don't have a good one, it's pretty clear when you don't have the good one. And the Rams, since Zerline was their last actual kicker they invested in, and they let him go. It was kind of a turnstile. They got lucky. Matt Gay released by the Buccaneers and came and found life here in LA. And then I get it. They didn't want to pay him $4 million plus, which I think what the Colts gave him, which is a pricey figure for a kicker. But obviously it paid its ugly head last year. The offseason, they were shedding just everything. So it was kind of a tough situation. But now it's really hurt. And you think about the fact that, Matt Gay obviously gone, still having success. Cameron Dicker was on this roster, and now he's a Pro Bowler with the Chargers and one of the best kickers in football. Dicker the kicker. So I think at this point, Skinny T, this is what I think the Rams are going to do at kicker. Because I don't think after the Sam Sloman experience, after, as you mentioned, Tanner last year, which was a guy they brought in, rookie, I think the UFL kicks off in 2 weeks. I think they're getting their kicker from the UFL. That's how it's going to go down. I don't think any of these free agent kickers, unless they bring Maher back for cheap, just because there's some familiarity there. But I don't think they're going to go after any of these kickers remaining. I think the UFL is going to define the Rams kicking game, and the Rams are going to go after one of these UFL kicking behemoths.
The Rams finished their special teams negative 9.2 DVOA. That is the lowest special teams DVOA in the entirety of since it's existed. That's how bad the special team situation, and the kicker had a good amount to do with that. Yeah. So,
and their assistant special teams coach got promoted to another team.
Yeah,
interestingly enough,
and they kept their special teams coach.
Yeah,
they just hired in 2023.
A lot of youth, a lot of youth. We'll give it that as the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, UFL. Mark my words. Rams are getting their kicker from the UFL. Kicks off in 2 weeks, March 30th, baby.
Anything. Just figure it out.
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, quick question here. Safety situation.
At all. Here we go.
Yeah. I'm still holding out that they're able to get Jordan Fuller back. That's where I want them to go. I'll just familiarize myself again with who's left in safeties. As we mentioned, there's a lot. Cameron Curl, Julian Blackman, Jordan Whitehead. Tashawn Gibson is an old man, but an interesting name there.
Quandre Diggs, Justin Simmons, obviously.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think, Jordan Fuller's number one, but I think they've had a good track record of finding these guys in the draft in later rounds. So I don't mind them going after going that way. Justin Simmons, Ryan has been banging the table for him, and great veteran option. Do you think they're officially priced out of that now, or do you think there's still options with restructures and whatnot?
I mean, if we know the Noteboom's restructure is coming, has to be. We know that's coming, which I believe is about 10 million in relief. We mentioned last show that I believe they can do a Stafford restructure which could give them 20 million or so. So that's 30. If that's true, I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not going to sit here and say I know the cap super well. But I just don't know if that means they're going to give that all to a big name safety, or that means they're going to do, re-sign Fuller, go get one of those sleeper edge guys you mentioned, and then go into the draft set with that. So at this point, after paying big money for Jackson, after getting Parkinson and Darious Williams, I can't see a big name safety being the guy anymore. Justin Simmons and Eddie Jackson, any of those guys that kind of you mentioned. To me, I think they got to get Fuller back, and then you run it back with Fuller, Yeast, Quentin Lake as kind of your star money guy, and then you draft someone, which I love. If they can get a Kalen Bullock in the 3rd or 4th round out of USC, I know, obviously I talk a lot of LA prospects, but I know them the best since we cover SC and UCLA. But Kalen Bullock reminds me of Justin Simmons, the way he plays, a true free safety, a center fielder, a ball hawk, led the team in interceptions 2 years ago. This past year was just a terrible year for the defense. But I don't think that's a slight on Kalen Bullock. And so he's a guy I think that, if you have some consistency with Jordan Fuller, you had guys in Russ Yeast and Quentin Lake at least play at the NFL level, you can bring Kalen Bullock along slowly, and he can take over in year 2 as kind of your true free safety. So that's probably the route I'm not saying they're going to do. That's what I think they'll do now based on the money situation. 2 days ago, I was all in on Justin Simmons. I don't know if they can afford him now, based on what they've spent.
Here's a really good question from Willie Bowen here. He's asking about adding a fullback, and the changes that they made with the offensive front, the offensive line, that is, it does signal that the Rams are looking at being a much more physical team. So I don't know if it's a fullback exactly. I don't know if it's 12 personnel. But what a change would that be if they go from 11 personnel to 21 or 12 personnel, two backs and one running back, or
let's just start running the I formation and the wishbone. Let's just go real old school and totally let's go Leatherhead style. Just change it up completely.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to this at this point. I like the physicality. I like the toughness that they're projecting right now.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to it. I don't think it'll happen. They've showed, McVay's run plays, right, with Ben Skowronek back at fullback with a tight end playing kind of in fullback in certain plays. But to me, that's more the most we'll see of it. I think they'll do some plays like that. I can't see them allocating money to a specific fullback, but that's just me.
Colby Parkinson, their new tight end, has run out of the backfield, so that might be the version that you're looking for, Willie Bowen. There,
yeah, there's your Xander Horvath right there. His name is just Colby Parkinson, hailing from what? Didn't he go to is he from Westlake or something from right here in LA?
Yeah, and then Stanford grad. I always like those West Coast Ivy guys on the Rams.
Great head of hair. Great head of hair.
That too. We know that's important on the Rams skinny.
Just to answer this, we'll see what the total price is, Swing Timer. What do you think Fuller's going to get? We haven't talked a ton. Because I think, Simmons cap hit with the Broncos when Kupp was 18.5. He's not going to get that on the open market. But I still think he can garner, 8, 9, 10, 11. I know that's very broad, giving you 4 million difference there, differentiator. But, just based on, he's led the Broncos in interceptions at the safety position since he was drafted in 2016. So I still think, he is 31, but was a Pro Bowl. It was an all pro, just a year ago. So I still think he's going to get double digit, to me, Fuller feels like, because of how deep the free agent safety market is in that 6-7 million range. But what do you think, Skinny?
Yeah, I'm just going to take a peek and do a little cheating to so PFF's projection. We're not PFF evangelists, but the guy that does this is pretty good at these. 2 years, $4.63 million year average. So
For Fuller?
yeah, for Fuller. So yeah, 2 years, 9.25 million
Yeah,
is
for
kind
that,
of what he's projecting.
you gotta bring him back for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it say, does he have Simmons on there? I'm just curious.
I don't think so. I don't think they add the guys that got cut, but
Got cut. It'll be
yeah.
double that, though, I'll tell you that. It'll be double that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And, you know, as the days go on, if these guys don't get picked up, that just makes it a little bit cheaper. So,
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, I'd love to get Fuller, and now Kalen Bullock would be mine. Let's get to a few more of these. Why not?
yeah.
Late arrival, but I got a bad feeling about Hunter going to the Rams, but I still think you guys were wrong about Dotson. Have you not seen already how that's a steal? The D will get better soon. Thank you, Muffin Man, for the comment. Go ahead, Skinny.
Let's see here. I don't think it's a steal. I think they paid a good price for him. But you know, the D getting better, that's the part that I'm not entirely sure on. That's the I'm not sure on it. I'm keeping my open mind and wait until they see what they do with the rest of the free agency and the draft to kind of give my final report on the defense. But I don't see this defense getting markedly better unless they invest at the edge. You'll have to go back and listen to our sleepers that they could add. We both had a couple, but yeah, I mean that. I don't know if I answered that question fully, but I see what how the benefit of what they're doing along the offensive front, and how the offense is going to improve from that. But I came into free agency with tons of question marks about the defense, and I'm so far still have all of those questions. Darious Williams is a good addition, but he doesn't answer all the big questions. And the biggest one was at edge rusher.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't need to add much to it. Again, appreciate the comment. We didn't dislike the signing.
Love the player.
Kevin Dotson was like our biggest, bring back free agency. It was just, when you look at, it's a high price. And to your point, Muffin Man, like I think the thought is seeing some of these guards that have gone since him for a higher price tag. Like point. I get that. But it's just when you look at that position in general, allocating, when you look at the cap, I know they pushed a lot of it to later, but it's basically what, 25 million in cap to the Jackson and Dotson, right? For this 24 cap hit. It's just a big number for the guard, but they're obviously putting a premium on the offensive line, which is great. Got to protect Stafford, got to have the run game going. So hopefully that'll work. But
and just to say it again, as you're a late arrival, I love that the physicality that they're bringing to the line of the scrimmage, changing how they're approaching the game of football in a big way. And I was thinking about it this afternoon. One of McVay's difficulties in his coaching career is pivoting, whether that's pivoting partway through a series, partway through a game, getting away, changing his offense completely. That's what he's doing now. He's making a big shift. And so we got to praise him for, shifting as the world of football, moves towards limiting explosive plays with the two high safeties, the Fangio Staley defense. The physical fronts is what, those defenses dare you to run the ball. And if a team dares you to run the ball, you got to be able to run the ball. And they're definitely going to be in that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it's great. And I don't want to keep hammering this point down, but this comment, by next year, Dotson will be a low paid guard of his caliber. Great. I do agree with you. No way D is abandoned during Super Bowl run. Well, as of right now, it is been abandoned. So we'll see. Hopefully there's a shift, and if these restructures, they can sign some of these guys. But right now, we said it at the top of the show, we kind of went into it. This D is much worse on paper right now than it was at the end of last season. You have no starting safeties, Jordan Fuller and John Johnson. You're missing a starting backer, Christian Noseboom. You're missing a starting edge, Michael Hoyt, and you're missing your defensive coordinator and your linebackers coach in Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake. Chris Shula could be great, but he's a rookie defensive coordinator, and you're missing a lot of starters in that line, and they've done nothing to add minus Darious Williams, and you can't expect to go into the draft and hit like they did last year. Last year was an unbelievable draft. Hats off to the entire staff and Les Snead and Sean McVay. But to say, and I'm not saying you're saying this, I'm just on my pedestal talking, so I'm not saying you're saying this, but to say on a Super Bowl run, we'll just draft our starting defense, that is not the way to do it. You can't expect to hit on all your picks and have a Super Bowl caliber defense. Let's hope they do. They did last year. It was great. But as of now, 100 and what, Skinny? 60 million to the offense, 52 to the defense, and 30 of that is Aaron Donald. You got to do something more for this defense in this Super Bowl window, because last year's defense exceeded expectations. As of now, the defense is worse, and this is now a Super Bowl team, and so the defense is going to be expected to do a lot more.
Yeah, we've seen a guy like Jadeveon Clowney get drafted super high and just never pan out. That's the risk. That's, but we hope for the best, and draft season is full of optimism. Every guy's going to hit. So, yeah.
I mean, and it's a good year to need defense, because there are some definitely good defenders, and the Rams have proven they can draft well. So we just got to see.
In terms of cap space, they do sit at 16 million right now, with the chance that they're going to restructure Joe Noteboom, which should give a good amount of money. There's other options for restructures, but that's the only one that I've heard legitimately talked about at this point. Yeah.
And then just final thing, and again, seriously love the engagement. I don't disagree with you. I think they definitely will restructure, but all the big names in free agency are gone. So now you're restructuring for lesser players to fill those positions. And there's still some talent out there. We talked about it all at the beginning of the show at some of those positions. We just talked about safeties, obviously. So that can certainly happen. And if they do, then all these look absolutely fantastic, and the offensive line is solidified. They got some defense, so let's hope that happens.
Still questions at this point, though.
Just questions right now. Yeah. So we can't sit here behind a desk and say they're going to build a Super Bowl defense with what we see the cap space at now. Let's hope.
And as soon as it changes, as soon as they answer those questions, I don't mind admitting that I was wrong.
Yeah. We're not even being wrong, just saying we were just waiting and seeing, and now we see, perfect. And they answer the questions. They answer the questions. Yeah. So, anything else, Skinny T? I think we're at an hour now. We weren't even planning to go along. We love everyone in here. This has been amazing. But
this is incredible. Thanks so much to all you guys for hanging out with us and listening to us talk Rams, which is our favorite thing to do. And it's great to have community. And I love what's happening with the Rams Skinny community. If you're not following, subscribe and like and comment and do all the things.
Yes, please. Like and subscribe. Rams LAFB is the YouTube channel. LAFB Network, where you can find all of our stuff. .com. Obviously, tons of Rams content. Plus, if you like USC and UCLA, or if you do want to know about the Chargers, we got that all there as well. Skinny T does a great job. Our full free agency tracker's up there with tons of information, everything you need. Just go ahead and bookmark that. That'd be amazing. But thank you all for hanging out with us. It's been fun. We'll try to do. I think we need to do live more often, Skinny T. We need to do live more often.
Good response.
Yeah, always
really
great.
Impressed with you. Really impressed with us. Look at us.
Anyone new listening, shows come out every Monday and Thursday. Or I guess probably more like Tuesday, Friday. We record Monday, Thursday. But we'll try to do more live here on the Rams Skinny. So thank you all. It's going to be a great, officially tomorrow is the start of the new league year. It's always funny. Mondays, the tampering period begins, but everything breaks then. But officially tomorrow, all those deals become legitimate. And the new league years, that's when you'll see the LA Rams Twitter handle tweet out the official signings of all these guys. And hopefully we'll hear of some restructures, and hopefully we'll hear of some more signings to answer some more questions. And we can come on here next week and be excited, or even come on here on Thursday and talk about some great defensive moves that have answered some questions. So for Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dyrud. Thank you all so much. Were you going to say something else?
No.
Okay, look like you were getting Nancy to chop in. So thank you all so much for hanging out. Appreciate you. Everyone have a blessed Tuesday evening. At the latest, we'll talk to you all here on Thursday.